One game from elimination, what the Los Angeles Lakers are thinking right now. One bump, miss, where the refs have to admit, my bad, that changes a whole series. One frame that decided the most pivotal game and the most pivotal best series we have. And one prank call that should change the way we think about everything we're doing. We'll talk about it today around the horn. Let's start with Ball. Ant goes for 43. I'm not impressed as a sportscaster. I'm impressed as an Anthony. Timberwolves take the 3-1 series lead on the Lakers. LA's fourth quarter, 5 of 18 shooting. Took just 9 shots over the final 5 minutes. J.J. Redick did not make a substitution in the second half. LeBron, a great full line. Only took 9 shots for the game. Doncic, a great end number, 38. Only 1 rebound to assist. And now L.A. 1 game from elimination. To Los Angeles we go around the horn. Clinton Yates, takeaway from this loss for the Lakers, win for the T-Wolves.
The Lakers have 3 issues that ultimately add up to an advantage for the Timberwolves. Luka on defense is a problem. JJ is a touch over his head from a coaching standpoint. And LeBron, God bless him, is a step slower as evidence. What that adds up to for the Timberwolves is sort of like when you're a kid and you play your dad in basketball in 101. We had David Dennis Jr.'s son here before. And then there comes that one day where you beat him and you know that you're going to beat him for the rest of your life.
That's what this
is
for
where the
you.
Timberwolves are right now. And Anthony is going after LeBron in a way that shows a level of confidence and a level of leadership that I think the rest of that team is actually feeding off of. Never mind the defensive length and all of that. There is a intimidation factor that is not there. Everybody else says, don't poke the bear, don't poke the bear. Anthony Edwards is the bear now, and that's what we're seeing in this series.
Courtney Cronin, around the horn to you.
I think it shows you that coaching matters, and I don't fault J.J. Redick for going with his best 5, but to keep all of them in the second half of the game, no substitutions, no nothing, letting Dorian Finney-Smith, who had never played 41 minutes this season, know 2 minutes before the third quarter that he was going to be starting in place of Jackson Hayes. I just think that that's bad coaching. As Clinton mentioned, that's being over your head in a situation where now you're fatigued going into an elimination game. I know that LeBron said they got good looks. He didn't blame being tired, but the facts are the facts. They were 5 of 18 in the fourth quarter. They've been outscored every fourth quarter so far this series, and they've only cracked the 30% shooting mark 1 time. This is the rescinded trade of Mark Williams, them trying to get a center. This is what they thought would put them over the edge in the postseason. This is that rearing its ugly head, showing them that it's not just time yet for them to be on a championship.
All right, so you think over the edge. You think they're at the edge of elimination, and I'm picking up what Clinton and Courtney are putting down. It's over for the Lakers. David Dennis Jr., around the horn to you.
Yeah, pardon me for focusing on the actual best player of the series here. This is Anthony Edwards carving out a real deal legacy as a legitimate playoff assassin. You look at what he did last year and this year. He is now 11-4 in games in the playoffs against Kevin Durant, Jokic, and LeBron James. And he was better than KD. He's better than LeBron and Luka this series. And he was neck and neck with Jokic last series. What he's doing in the fourth quarter with the team that was struggling in the clutch in the regular season, playing pretty much flawless basketball, having a personal 7-1 run in Game 3 in the clutch, and 16 points in the fourth quarter to the Lakers, 19 points total, making pretty much every play correctly down the stretch. Anthony Edwards is putting the Lakers to sleep by being the best player against LeBron and Luka, which I don't think that many players in the league could say that.
And Justin Tinsley, takeaway.
Yeah, you got to give Ant all the credit in the world. The dude's a true megastar, but this is a real team effort. This Wolves team has rounded into form that we thought we were going to see at the beginning of the season. But if you're going to give Anthony Edwards a lot of credit, which he deserves, you got to give Jaden Daniels a lot of credit. He's had a phenomenal series on both sides of the ball. But I have to focus in McDaniels, yes. I have to focus on J.J. Redick. He's a basketball savant, but he's getting out-coached this series. We talked about it after the Game 1 loss. We're talking about it now. Playing all 5 of your starters all 24 minutes of the second half is crazy. Sometimes your job as a coach, you have to save the players from themselves. And, yes, I get there were questionable calls in the fourth quarter, but guess what? That team was gassed. Like you said, they went 5 of 18 in the fourth quarter after being up double digits in the third. And this is their 9th straight road loss, Tony. This isn't just a J.J. Redick issue. It was an issue with Darvin Ham. They don't execute well in the clutch in road playoff games.
The thought was
and now they're down 3-1.
Doncic, insert Doncic there, those worries go away. Clinton Yates, I'll give you the last word.
Whether or not you want to consider Luka, LeBron, and Austin Reeves a big three, that doesn't matter. But Austin Reeves has to be one of the best players on the team for them to win a daggone game, and he hasn't been that yet so far against the Timberwolves.
Been horned. Move on. Now to Shedeur Sanders. Pick 144. The fall to the 5th round. The talk around it and the talk around the talk around it and the prank call. I want it all, but first we'll start with the fit with the Browns and the fall to the 5th round. Court, you were working the phones all draft. Your take.
My takeaway here is that this reminded me of what happened when Michael Sam was drafted. He was projected to be a 3rd or 4th round pick, fell to the 7th round because of things that had absolutely nothing to do with football. Shedeur Sanders, from everyone I talked to this weekend on the phone with GMs and other personnel people to find out where they actually had him on the board, a late day 2 pick, a high-end backup, low-end starter. He was never supposed to fall to the 5th round. So it was due to things outside of football, but my biggest takeaway among many of the reasons of why he fell, Tony, is the fact that Deion Sanders overplayed his hand. He represented his son during the pre-draft process. He went in front of microphones and said he would not be going to specific teams. There was this so-called do not draft list. He overplayed his hand for a prospect who would never have been good enough to be able to pull that off. In the NFL and all these teams outside of the Cleveland Browns, who, by the way, passed on him 6 times before they had a chance to get him, they made an example out of him. And Shedeur, to his credit, it now said that he, may have done things wrong in the pre-draft process. And I think that Deion Sanders is having to take this one on the chin. Look at his own son, Shiloh, the safety who ended up signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the 11th hour after firing dad as his agent and hiring a real one in Drew Rosenhaus. So let this be a lesson to prospects out there. Who you represent matters in a very big way as you go through the pre-draft process and eventually onto an NFL team.
David Dennis Jr.
Yeah, what we're looking at is a convergence of a lot of history falling into one weekend. There's a history of the NFL and their ideas about protecting the shield and what they feel like. There's histories of the Sanders, history of the quarterback, which makes this really complicated and pretty much impossible to find one specific answer about why Sanders fell. He was probably already a fringe first-round pick, so some of the mock drafts were wrong. There's probably some owners out there who wanted to humble him and Sanders, and then there's just the talent that was there. So I'm not, it's okay, I think, to say we don't know what the specific answer is. What I do know, though, and I know it's maybe a little bit of a tangent, but I feel like it's important to say, I want to say this to folks on the internet and folks who are paying attention. This is not the Colin Kaepernick situation. This is important to know. Colin Kaepernick was absolutely blackballed from the league for standing up for folks' rights. This is not what Shedeur Sanders went to. He was embarrassed for 48 hours in a draft, and he ended up going to a Browns team where he still could possibly be a starter on that team because they managed to have half of Wu-Tang Clan's worth of bad quarterbacks, and he can still work his way up to a starter. So this is not the same situation. His career can still end up being okay.
Protect your neck. Justin Tinsley, around the horn to you.
Yeah, if you listen to some of the conversations right before the draft, you can hear analysts start to say, I don't know if this guy's a first-round pick. And I think it really exposed a disconnect between how front offices and teams viewed him, how mock drafts viewed him, and then just the universe in between all of that. So, yes, this is the league sending a message. This is Shedeur saying, hey, maybe I would have done things differently. But guess what? He's in the league now. He's a 5th round. We didn't see him dropping all the way to 144. But I actually think this Brown situation could work out for him. As David said, that quarterback room in Cleveland is loaded. I don't think Deshaun Watson is going to play next year. I don't think anybody expects Kenny Pickett to be a starter. So that basically leaves him and Dylan Gabriel to be the backup behind Joe Flacco. And if Shedeur Sanders is QB2 going into week 1, then we're going to see him as a starting quarterback at some point next year.
And Clinton Yates.
I don't mean to be this guy, but I'm using it as a data point. As one of the only people here who covered a bunch of Shedeur Sanders when he was in college, the main thing was never the tape. The thing was the leadership and the personality that he brought. And if you looked at what his ceiling was overall, it was a little tricky because he was compared alongside a guy like, Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter, just because they happened to be on the same team. And in reality, they were not on the same trajectories to begin with. And so when you look at that compared to where he eventually went, teams didn't want to take on the guy that they figured, well, if he's not that talented, I don't need somebody to tell my guys how how to play, but ultimately, that's the draw with him. He's a popular player who people like to play with, and I do think the Browns could use a lot of that, whether it's in their quarterback room or whether it's on the team. So yes, this is a place where he can end up succeeding or in the NFL, but it was never going to be because he was some high-round draft pick that some team threw the farm at. Never.
The prank call. I want to talk about this because I know we're all on the same page. Everyone's in agreement here what this was. It was cruel. It was childish. It's not a crime against humanity, but it played out in front of our own eyes. And it's been going around with other players, too. Tyler Warren in round 1, reportedly. Cooper DeJean last year, reportedly. Here is the apology from Jax Ulbrich, son of Falcons defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich, for the call he made to Sanders. You can read that on the screen here. But, Courtney, what have you heard? What do we have here? Is the NFL continuing to look at this? How did this happen?
Well, you have a real security issue if Jeff Ulbrich apparently, allegedly, had no knowledge of his son getting privileged information off of his iPad, including Shedeur Sanders' phone number, which he said he unintentionally got, but then intentionally did something very malicious with it to take away from someone's, what's supposed to be the most important, best day of their life. It's malicious. It's mean. You're 21 years old. You know better than that. It's a dumb move all the way around. I wish that there would be some sort of penalty, even though that the Atlanta Falcons said they're not taking any sort of measures against their defensive coordinator on this, but to turn a negative into a positive here. Why doesn't every team just call the prospects that they're going to draft on FaceTime so you can verify who is calling you is really the team that's drafting?
Of course, that seems natural. But the reporting here, because I want to start with the reporting of this, is the NFL is going to leave it right where it is, continue to look at it. Courtney, what are you hearing?
They're saying that they're not, the Atlanta Falcons are saying they're not taking any sort of disciplinary action against Jeff Ulbrich. And obviously, these devices are team-issued devices. So there's a security issue here. I mean, I hope he's prepared for all the compliance training that's going to come his way to, protect your devices and the security of the prospects whose numbers and information are on these things, because that's not information that anybody should just be able to access, whether you're related to the coach or not.
Glenn Yates, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a major security issue. And as far as Protect the Shield goes, stuff like this is what matters. I am actually quite disappointed that there hasn't been some sort of disciplinary situation for the individual who left the information out. It doesn't have to be a firing. I don't think it's that serious, but there has to be a consequence for doing something like this wrong, even if it was your son who did it. That's what I understood Protect the Shield to be. In this case, to not have any corrective course is very surprising to me.
I just want to note there's a deep irony here of after a weekend spent talking about Shedeur Sanders and character issues, he becomes a victim of somebody who used real terrible character judgment and did something really idiotic and cruel, and we see what that actually looks like. And these two guys are roughly the same age.
Tinsley.
I just think it's wrong to rob somebody of such a special moment like that, regardless of how you feel about the Sanders family. I have more, but I know we got to go to break.
Take a break here. Fires on that.
Welcome back to Around the Horn, coming to you from the Heineken River Deck at Pier 17.
Before we bing the bong on the Knicks up 3-1 and the block party outside MSG was a scene, and the degree of difficulty of Cat's 2 masterclass shots was very high. The Pistons' last possession. Cade Cunningham unable to get the 12-footer to fall, as you'll see right here. And then a mess after that, and Hardaway's 3 not falling. The contact from Josh Hart, the lean-in from Hardaway, no call. J.B. Bickerstaff and the Pistons were irate. And Detroit now hearing the harder way, refs admitting that there was a foul, but they didn't call it. So, Clinton, they're admitting a mistake. Did Detroit get robbed?
I don't think so. I've never loved this sort of 2-minute drill situation anyway. It's like you can explain so many more things, and you put that on the spot. But also, this has been the most physical series of the entire NBA playoffs. You're telling me that little tap was supposed to change the game? Ain't no way for me, dog. This is a
that
completely
little tap
non-call.
was not worth the call. I agree with you. Okay, Courtney Cronin.
Yeah.
It was not just a little tap. Josh Hart admitted that he made contact with Tim Hardaway Jr. He should have gone to the line. I do not like the fact that the last 2 games have ended with some questionable no calls from these referees. I also think we shouldn't be robbing Tom Thibodeau of the credit he deserves here, though, to be able to get the most out of Karl Anthony Towns after his no-show act at the end of Game 2, Game 3, and Game 4. If we're going to criticize...
So wait, you're giving Thibodeau credit for Karl Anthony Towns. You're not giving Karl Anthony Towns credit for Karl Anthony Towns. Very interesting. David David Dennis Jr., that turns to you now. You've been very critical. Those are 2 big shots from Cat.
Yeah, hey, look, Cat has showed up in this game. He had 1 bad game with 10 points, but other than that, he's been great. This series has really come down to 2 fourth quarters. The first game 1 and game 4 in which the Pistons youth showed up and the Knicks clutch time performances were able to get them through. The Pistons came into those fourth quarters with leads. Jalen Brunson took over. Karl Anthony Towns took over. They've been outscoring the Pistons by 21 points in the fourth quarter. When the Pistons lose this series, they'll look back at those 2 quarters and say that's
Understood,
the reason why.
but maybe I got us sidetracked here. That call or no call there. Are you making that call? The refs admitted it should have been a foul and didn't call it. Were the Pistons wrong?
Yeah, it should have been. It should have been called, but missed calls happen all the time. The bigger issue is what the Pistons are not doing in that fourth quarter overall.
Yes, Detroit got robbed, but I also understand why the refs didn't make that call. They weren't really calling anything as of late in that game. But if we're going to focus on that, which we should, also focus on the other factors. OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges made life hell for Cade Cunningham throughout the course of that entire game. And of course, you mentioned Cat. He answered a lot of critics from game 2 and had 2 big games on the road in games 3 and 4.
3-1 and 2-2 is enormous.
Is
and for the refs to say that play, which would have ended the game, but it put him on the free throw line for 3 shots, and he only needs to hit 2. Woo! Fire still 2. Hockey. Connor Hellebuyck pulled again for the Jets. 11 goals allowed the last 2 games. Blues have evened the series 2-2. Winnipeg coach Scott Arniel. I'm 100% confident in Connor Hellebuyck. Courtney, should he be?
Yes, he should be. This is his goalie. This guy is going to win the Vezina Trophy this year. Yeah, I know. They've been outscored 12-3 in these last 2 games. He's never been benched like this in the middle of the postseason. But, Tony, who else are they going to go to? And playing at Enterprise Center is hard. The Blues have won 14 straight games there. The last game they lost, conveniently, to the Jets. The Jets will be just fine going forward. He needs a reset. It goes back to Canada for Game 5. I believe in my guy, Connor Hellebuyck, 100%.
Are you 100% confident in Hellebuyck, David Dennis?
No, the other part of that quote is his resume speaks for itself, and it does. His resume says he has issues in the playoffs. He hasn't had a 900 save percentage in 4 years. He has been struggling in playoff hockey that is vastly different than what we see in the regular season, and that's a real issue with a large sample size.
Justin Tinsley.
Publicly, I get why he said it. That's what he's supposed to say. Privately, he's probably chain smoking a lot of cigarettes right now because guess what? This dude is giving up 4+ goals in the last 6 road playoff games. So I expect them to win this win this series, but the road is only going to get tougher, and I mean that, pun intended.
I like winning stories, too. That's good. I expect them to win
too.
the story.
I do like that.
Clint Yates, how about you?
I'll use a comp of another series happening that I've actually been covering, which is Kings-Oilers. Stuart Skinner got lit up in the first 2 games. That's the point that the crowd at Crypto was chanting his name after he got pulled, even when he was sitting on the bench. They came back. That series is now tied. It makes total sense to stick with your goalie. It happens. Sometimes, guy can't stand on his head, as you guys like to say.
Gordy Cronin, Justin Tinsley, thanks for your time. Tinsley, you gave us that tease before. You had more? Please, take more. Go.
I think the Falcons need to lose a draft pick for this. He's in a very coveted situation as a defensive coordinator, and you cannot allow sensitive information to get out like that. Yes, this is still a prank call, but it's still sensitive information that got out.
Yates, Dennis Jr., some sensitive information. Go down next.
Hello.
The news today out of Milwaukee, it's not good. As you expected, Damian Lillard done with a torn Achilles. Oof. Bucks look like they're done versus Pacers. Could the Bucks be done? Bigger picture, too, if they go out here and look all ready to be, undamianed and unbucked for next year. And then Giannis, Clint, what's the takeaway here with Milwaukee?
It's a real tough deal for the Bucks. This never really worked out the way anybody wanted it to, and who's going to be mad? I mean, they got their ring. That sounds terrible to say in the context overall, but they had their celebration. They had their superstar. It just feels like whatever the next phase is coming sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it bums me out. They did get their ring, but ever since they got their ring, they've never been able to put a healthy squad into the playoffs, and a lot of these have been fluky injuries. This is a sad way to probably end the Giannis era with Milwaukee. This offseason will probably be a lot about where he's going to go
You think
next.
this ends the era?
Yeah, I think that there's just not enough there for them to win, and there's time for them to
And
sort
that
of
doesn't
rebuild
mean
and
in a
move on. I
bad
think it'll
way
be
that
cordial.
Giannis has to demand a trade or this gets ugly. It
No,
could
no,
be the,
I think they'll come
the
together
franchise.
and realize that it's best for both parties for them to just
I'm
part
splitting the
ways. And
point.
he'll go to a place that he
So I
wants. and
agree
they'll
with
get
what
they
Clinton
need.
you said as well. They got a championship. Let's not sneeze at one championship. We'll move on. One frame in TV terms on our game cameras here, 60 frames per second, is 1/60th of a second, of course. That comes out to 0.16, repeating, of course, 16 thousandths of a second. That is what we're talking about with Aaron Gordon's game-winning dunk. Right to the top of the list of all-time finishes and playoff history, first-round history, closest things in life, really. And as we said, difference between 3-1 and 2-2 is enormous. So, David, are you sure that he got it off?
I'm sure. Look at that. It's one frame difference, and his fingers are not on the ball. Absolutely sure. This is up there with the Derek Fisher .4 second shot against San Antonio, the DeAndre Ayton dunk. This is one of the greatest endings we've ever seen in a playoff basketball game.
Clinton, are you sure?
I don't need the camera angle. I was there. I saw it with my eyeballs. It was a dunk then. It won. It was the right call then. It made sense to me. That's got to count in the NBA that I care about.
I was waiting for someone to get the bonus point, though, and say, I'm positive. David Dennis Jr., a wire-to-wire win today. Let's go around the horn.
If you saw Reggie Miller's appearance on the All the Smoke podcast, he was doing one of the things that he's been doing for his entire career and talking about how great his sister Cheryl Miller was a basketball player, but also how much he loves her and how much he's inspired by her. He's been so gracious in talking about her as a great big sister. And I should know, I have 3 great big sisters, Andrea, Stacy, Erica, fantastic sisters who have helped form me to the person I am. You can thank them or blame them for me being who I am to this day. Shout out to Reggie, shout out to Cheryl, shout out to all the big sisters around the world.
I love that FaceTime. Shout out to Rosie, my sister Rosemary. And then my baby sister, Christina, who just had a baby. And then Francesca and Antonella, 2 great sisters in my life right now. We'll see you guys tomorrow.